Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to those of you around the world. Welcome to Trading Rebellion with your favorite analyst from Trade the Chain, joined by myself, Nick, along with CJ and Monte. We are here to break down everything going on in crypto, equities, TradeFi, and everything in between. If you guys saw the crypto charts last night, very exciting stuff. I know many were happy. We were talking about some longs over the weekend in the TTC chat. So congrats to all the members who took it, and also the non-members who took it too. Hopefully we see you guys in the community too. Just to start things off, let's kick it with the TTC dashboard. Total crypto market cap up to 1.1 trillion. It's been quite some time since we've been at the 1.1. We've been at the 1.0x for quite some time, so this is a nice beautiful jump here. Average sentiment 57, total trading volume 41 billion. Last time we talked, I think that was just above 30 billion. So really good weekend and Monday so far for the crypto markets. Total tweet volume is kicking with plus 23%. Bitcoin up 3.6%. Sentiment is bullish. Ethereum's up about 1%. Sentiment is bullish. We did have a little bit of a pullback today that we are going to discuss, but the TTC dashboard showing nothing but positivity. We've got coins up 63%, 20%, and in between. So the crypto markets are giving it today, and the TTC members who are watching this dashboard are very happy. One thing I did want to call out, just because we talked about this last Thursday, I think as well, is stablecoin exchange inflows were more than 100 million in the past 24 hours, and we obviously saw that ticked up last week as well. And I know Monte and CJ want to talk about that a little bit for some forward-looking outlook, as well as just some good rule of thumb for the crypto exchanges as well. So congrats to those who are long. Let's see if that is going to last or if a pullback is on the horizon. So we're going to start with the DXY. I know that everyone's not their favorite asset, but if you look at the correlation between risk assets and DXY, there is some insights to be gleaned. So equities have not moved an inch since DXY has been moving higher after its slight pullback late last week. And we have a new high, and it looks like 107.2 coming quicker than we think. So CJ, Monte, this is anything interesting in DXY? I think we're all in agreement that higher is likely going to be the case. But I know CJ does watch the positioning. And is there anything interesting from your side of life, CJ?
Yeah, there was a pretty significant swing in positioning. We use an oscillator to measure like positioning on a relative 6-week look back period. And I think it went a point of like 60, or a swing of 60 points, and the meter's only like 100. So, when you look at assets that comprise the largest components of the DXY, such as the Swiss franc and the euro, they are now max crowded with shorts. And I'd love for you to bring up the euro chart, especially on the weekly chart, just 6E. And if you just look at that continuous
euro versus USD,
yeah, that'll work too. Euro dollars. This is the, I believe, 11th consecutive losing week for the euro. So, it's not really giving me a place to define risk just yet. And the other thing that you have to take into account that Monte and I really talked about this morning is that a lot of times, very rarely will a market get very crowded and then immediately reverse. Energy was a great example of that throughout the past 3 months. So perhaps the dollar, pulls back incrementally, but then continues to get bid up. We just don't really know. Either way, one thing that I'll be looking for gradually over the next couple of weeks is a spot to have defined risk, potentially look for longs and things like the euro or potentially Swiss franc should this dollar trend begin to reverse. Because, even if the market kind of remains crowded and let's say the dollar does make higher highs, I think there's still a interesting, reasonable pullback which could take place. So Monte, any thoughts on DXY in relation to that?
No, for the most part, I completely agree. I think one thing that you should take note of though today is assets that are showing signs of strength into DXY strength, because that's a bit atypical. Just to name a few names, like Nvidia, it's still up on the day despite the fact that the dollar is down. I mean, it's not doing anything crazy. And that being said, though, that is still resilience and a correlation failure, which in most instances would be an indication to go long. I don't have that much confidence in NVIDIA. It kind of looks like we might just run up to like and form this head and shoulders formation here and get rejected at that previous high right there that you just highlighted, Nick. I could definitely see that happening. That being said, it's worth noting that, it is showing strength while DXY is still up. But one thing I did want to mention, Nick, if you could pull back up the Trade the Chain dashboard, is that total crypto market cap being up 2.17%. That is extremely significant. Like, that is a lot of capital flowing into crypto. And, I think we'd be remiss not to mention the ETH BTC pair. We talked about that a lot last week. I think that that's finally starting to see a breakdown, right? Because we got that news that everyone's been talking about, the ETF approval. And this is your textbook buy the rumor, sell the news type event. I mean, that is exactly what it looks like when you have a buy the rumor, sell the news event. Now, in the long term, of course, the ETF is good news. It will be an on-ramp for more people to get exposure. But for the time being, I think that our descending triangle, Nick, this one looks like it still might be intact, but I think it's starting to lose its momentum there. And just going back to like the total crypto market cap being up over 2%, and you're having all those stablecoin inflows while ETH kind of drops off a cliff. One thing that might be interesting to explore is longing altcoin pairs versus the ETH pair, because now that we've had that narrative in the rear view, I could expect some continued weakness from ETH. So if there's an altcoin that you like that's showing signs of resilience, and CJ has pointed out a couple in our Discord, Nick has pointed out a couple in our Discord, I've pointed out a few in our Discord that are showing signs of resilience, playing them long versus the ETH pair might be a good play, because to me, buying ETH right now would be catching a falling knife, given the relative weakness is showing to Bitcoin.
Yeah, and we're looking at the weekly here, and it basically, today's Monday, and I know that's not the most beautiful image right here, but we gave back the entire week's gains in a day. So stairs up, elevator down. We all know that. But it is, and we could just also sit here and consolidate like we did, in June. So I wouldn't be, shorting the house right now on the ETH BTC chart, but it does show a general weakness and, a bit of, I guess, not really a news failure, because it did cooperate properly with the news, but the fact that it's just all gone after the news kind of just washed over is certainly not a positive. So I would probably bet, by the end of October into November that we're probably going to tap that estimated 200 moving average on the weekly. And then if that breaks down, that's pretty much been the bulk of the bull trend since, very early 2021. So that may spell, an issue. Now, I kind of like this mid 5-cent level, to be honest with you. I've seen a lot of crypto formations kind of do the kind of inverse head and shoulders right here. So I'll be paying very close attention if we end up seeping down here. And I doubt we also drop straight down. So it's just because we have this estimated 200 moving average. I think this is going to be a choppy one. I wouldn't be putting too much, too many large trades behind this, but like Monte said, depending on if you're bullish or bearish a certain alt, this is always a great chart to check. At least maybe on a lower time frame to see, is Ethereum or are altcoins going to hold up against Big Daddy Bitcoin? So that's always a good question to ask yourself. Equities. So what do we make of this? And I know, Richard, I saw you ask about gold, so we'll get to that right before the crypto segment. So because gold did take quite a hit last week. But when we look at equities, a lot of consolidation. We have not sniffed these lows from the 27th of September yet, but I'm sure a lot of people with the Bitcoin boost, were definitely like, oh, maybe equities try to do something early Monday. And clearly that is not the case. We are lower than where we closed on Friday. And we still have a full week to go. So any strong feelings about equities, CJ, Monte? I don't remember you guys really having anything, but I'd be shocked if our followers are not at least curious as to why, you know, equities are down with crypto having an explosive weekend.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of the price action we saw this weekend, you know, what we talked about last week, if you go back to, you know, and you watch Thursday's episode of Trading Rebellion, one thing we were talking about is that we wanted to see strength in the equity markets into the weekend, right? And that could have translated into positive price action in Bitcoin. And that's basically essentially what we got is we closed strong, only for, you know, Bitcoin to run up on the weekend. And then when the equity markets open back up, we see Bitcoin kind of start to pull back. So for me, I think a lot of this move was set up on Friday, and we saw it play out over the weekend. And now that the equity markets are back in trading and not looking too great, you know, we're getting kind of exactly what you'd expect out of Bitcoin. That being said, it is holding that 28K level and kind of chopping around that level pretty well, especially if you know, compare it with things like ETH, like I mentioned earlier, or a lot of other altcoins, or even crypto related equities. Like Bitcoin's holding its own here, and I think that has to do with the stablecoin inflows, also that, you know, inflow of capital. It seems like if you just look at like Nick's watch list, I mean, there's a lot of red there. So where's that money going? It looks like it's going to Bitcoin. So for me, from like a traditional equity side of things, and for what we were seeing from Bitcoin, I don't have much faith in traditional equities continuing to the upside, and therefore you just got to be cautious when you're trading Bitcoin if you're looking to get long. So that's kind of what I'm seeing, but I would love to get CJ's thoughts on it as well.
Yeah, I'd just like to show some positioning data and show how people really bought all the way up into the highs. And now, you know, once you have people buy, especially into that second lower high, they really bought into that. And now, even last week, large and small speculators continue to buy, most prominently in ES, with really no ability to push price higher. So the reason why this is concerning from a bullish perspective, and I'll give you an extreme example of when we saw this historically, and that was before COVID, or just as COVID was happening. Now, if you'll remember, after the news came out, we initially had like a 4 to 5% dip because everybody didn't realize the ramifications economically that COVID would have. However, everybody came in, bought that 5% dip, but when it kept dipping and they weren't able to buy the dip with any success, that's when you kind of know, all right, this market is in trouble, because if price keeps going down, there's going to be a lot of longs who got in at late levels who are going to have to puke their positions. Now, that is a very extreme black swan type situation, but I think the same principle remains. And like, those people who bought into these highs are just going to have to keep capitulating their positions. And to my surprise, I thought they'd already be more short by now. You know, you see things like the equity put call ratio hitting 1.3. You see, like, fear is clearly in the market to a degree, but in the futures market, like, people just keep buying ES, and they haven't had much success yet. And very similar can be said for like things like Nikkei. I think the only thing that equities have going for them right now is that the dollar positioning is no longer crowded with shorts. So if the dollar is going to rally from here on out, it's mainly going to be like longs, new longs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And one correlation, CJ, that's still definitely intact is that inverse correlation between the DXY and gold.
Oh my God.
And speaking of positioning, you know, I mean, gold, last week we were talking about TLT. Gold is looking similar. And I know you've been, you know, keeping your finger on the pulse of gold closely. And, you know, Richard asked me about it, but I would defer to you. You know, with the metals right now, like, what do you do when you see this sort of price action and this sort of positioning shaking out in the metals? Because, like, just take a look at this gold chart. I mean,
can you please just on the
this
precious
is the
metals
ETF.
side, please, can you bring up 6S or just silver futures?
Yeah. Oops.
I think this is the largest down move silver futures has had in over multiple years. There's like 450 basis points, I think, today.
What is it?
I think if you just type in silver futures and hit the continuous contract. Oh yeah, it's SL or SI. Excuse me. I should know that. Anyways, long chart with pulling up, but I think it's definitely worth today's candle.
It's a heck of a move.
Yeah. So, I didn't catch this one. My COT just wasn't really crowded, and I wasn't looking to short metals. Earlier, like the way that this trade would have played out based on the COT system, I think it would have gotten you long things like the dollar or short like the euro. But now that they're already played out, there's not much for me to do. I'm not really going to chase here. I'm not going to short something like silver or gold after. It would be kind of like shorting the euro after 11 consecutive down weeks. It just isn't really that practical. So what I would wait for is I want to see confluence of safe haven assets get really crowded to the short side, specifically gold, the Swiss franc, also Japanese yen, but Swiss franc has typically been kind of a safe haven asset or a safe haven currency as well. So if those all get crowded and then begin to squeeze, that's when I would be interested in looking for a gold long opportunity. But as of now, there's really nothing for me to do. I missed the move. Monte's got some, he doesn't want me to remind him of his chain, but if price is going up, maybe, but I'll stop talking.
Oh man, I bought the chain a week too early. Probably would have been cheaper this week.
Did you guys see Costco started selling gold bars like a week ago? Did you see that news?
No, why would gold bullions?
Yes, I believe so. Do we have a news article on that?
Who's the demographic for that? Who's going to Costco and buying gold bullions?
I know the option oracle. That's who.
AJ Monte.
There's many folks with that type of mentality. And gold was really hot earlier in the year. Like that was another really, really popular trade. I remember when people were really bullish on gold when it made the triple top. Thank you for pulling this up.
Free ounce of gold with every hot dog purchase.
Okay, so I mean, when did this come out? Last week? That's pretty nice.
Yeah. Well, it's posted on it's
September 26th. Yeah, so last week.
It's just funny. It corresponds with like the largest price drop in precious metals we've seen.
Well, I also saw I'm interesting. I kind of glossed over it because it was one of those where it could have been like some sort of BS story because the people who cover like metals and especially even like the traditional like news sources for metals look sketchy just because they've been doing it for 200 years and haven't updated anything since the 70s. So I saw that they actually discovered like one of the largest gold nuggets ever in terms of a dig very recently. So, and I kind of glossed over it. And then 2 days later, gold is nuking. And I was like, oh, I wonder if that was actually true. So, but I really don't trade metals. They trade very slow. I mean, CJ is correct. You can use enough leverage to make anything entertaining, but the metals move extremely slow. So I guess until they all move together.
So look at this. I mean, listen, if you want to get exposure to gold, Costco customers, and I'm sure a lot of you have a Costco card. I have one. I go to Costco all the time. You get 2% cash back on your purchase. So you can purchase, one of these bars for roughly $2,000 and get 2% cash back. It's like a funding rate that's, overwhelmingly like people are, you're basically getting money to buy gold. It's a relatively interesting means of exposure, but maybe the best way to get exposure to gold. That being said, do you want exposure to gold right now? I don't know.
Yeah, that could be. It's also a good question. But speaking of digital gold, let's move on to Bitcoin. But the one last thing I wanted to mention is this chart. I feel like this like everything you can look at on the equities chart is whatever, except for this one point. And we've been hovering for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days now above the 200 estimated moving average for the daily chart, which also coincides with what seemingly a very critical range level from back in early June. And if we break underneath this level, then I have a feeling that 4,200 is going to come quick, very quick. And then obviously beneath that, if you crack beneath 4,200, we're going to be, chopping and have a very difficult time for Q4, in my opinion. So I think this is, if you're watching a number, turn on the estimated 200 moving average on the daily chart for the S&P 500 and, watch and wait and pray that it holds. And if it doesn't, then we'll take some shorts down lower. So that's my outlook, at least in the short term. But Bitcoin. So we obviously, and I think this is, I'm on the 15-minute chart here, but I think this is just really simple science for people who are observing a trend. If you kind of even scroll all the way back, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low, higher low. And I'm not going to keep saying it because I know everybody's going to get tired in the chat, but that is a bullish trend. Bitcoin did not break bullish market structure once. And then obviously zoomed up. Now, how high things go when they go, that's always a bit of a luck component, but you find your luck when you continue to see higher lows. And we call this out to the TTC community over the weekend. I believe this area right here was where I was interested in longing. I didn't get it on Bitcoin. It actually tagged for ETH. We'll talk about that in a second, but the trend right now looks really good. And the 5-hour or the 15-minute estimated 200 moving average trend still holding intact. We are now beneath the weekly VWAP, which is worrisome considering we did not go under there except, for a very small amount of time last week. So I have this area circled because when we're talking about market structure still, if we go beneath this level, we finally form a lower high. And then if we actually break beneath the 27K level, then the larger, once we start zooming out to the 1 hour, the market structure gets broken as well. So 27.8, in my opinion, is very critical in the near term. Told the TTC community earlier, if we see a sweep, meaning drop under and come back up, that is your long trigger right there where I circled. And then if we break down below and then tag 27.8 again, then this is your short signal right here. So I think you got pretty defined trading. And then obviously if you can get above the weekly VWAP, which also coincides with a critical level at 28.1, then you've got a long back up to these highs up here. So I think that's the short-term outlook. I don't really have a long-term outlook because I think anytime after you see a 3-4% in one day move, it's time to ease on the brakes, especially with the grand context of DXY rising, equities dropping today. So it's not all rainbows and butterflies, and we have to, consider both sides of the coin here. My inclination is we'll probably end up at least sweeping 27.8. Whether we drop below is, another question, but does look like we'll probably grab that level to some degree in the near future. But CJ, Monte, what are you guys thinking? Are there any short-term trades in your opinion? Or are you buying a pullback? Are you holding longs? What are you guys thinking on the gold coin chart, and gold coin obviously meaning Bitcoin here?
Yeah, if I may, CJ. And this is something we talked about a little bit this morning, but I want to go a little bit more in depth here. One thing I love about candles like yesterday's candle is a lot of the time you'll get people trying to fade those moves. Because of, we had this upward velocity. Now we're getting a doji candle at the top of an uptrend. This is more of a shooting star candle even. But one thing that I think is actually a very plausible scenario, and I think that is something that you need to watch out for if you are looking to short Bitcoin, is the fact that, we are now above this level, 27.5, which we talked about all last week as being highly critical. I could see Bitcoin maintaining this merely on shorts entering and Bitcoin just continuing to just kind of squeeze those shorts out. And we get essentially what looks like, something like this, like a period of consolidation before either breaking lower or going higher. But
I hope that consolidation is not 6 weeks.
Listen, the thing is, I do worry that it could be quite some time because we had some stablecoin inflows. We had stablecoin inflows. We had the market cap increase. And without the equity market strength behind our back, I just don't see, what the catalyst is that's going to drive Bitcoin higher, right? So if the equity markets continue to break down, like the one thing I think best case scenario is consolidation, to put it quite bluntly. But that being said, if we do get this sort of consolidation, you got a clearly defined breakout level, like Nick said. And we talked about Thursday entering, a 3x long. Obviously, I'm out of that now. We talked about that in the Discord. But, one thing I'd watch out for is, and just keep a close eye on funding rates, because I could see a lot of people coming in being like, okay, this move has been made. Now we're going to see this, and just a perfect retracement, kind of like we did here, following this ETF news. But this wasn't on the back of ETF news. So, like, this reminds me very much of what we're seeing from Ethereum right now, right? It was like a buy the rumor, sell the news. This was more organic, and I hate saying it, like natural strength in Bitcoin. Shut up, CJ. Because like there's actual money flowing into the space, and that's something that you don't always get when price is increasing. So for me, I think it looks like there might be some bulls trying to hold this 28K line. And if we see a bunch of people try and come in, they saw yesterday's move, they see today's price action, they see today's equity price action, they think, oh, I'm going to short this back down to where it was before it made a move. That's a risky move, because a lot of traders, and it's evident today already, are fighting to protect this 28K level. That's why we're seeing so much money flow into the space. So I would just be wary if you're trying to short this, because I could see a short squeeze driving us higher, despite equity market weakness.
Yeah, I was actually, while you were talking, it kind of gave me, I actually took a scalp long on Bitcoin while you were talking, specifically because I like you kind of convinced me a little bit, but holding the daily, previous daily close right here. And this is one of my favorite, I mean, not a perfect play by any means, but here's the low, swept the low again. Now we're back above the previous daily close. And so we'll see. Hopefully, I think we'll probably get a reaction to the weekly VWAP in the next few hours, if I had to guess. And if we break below the previous daily close, then we'll probably end up tagging 27.8. So very clearly defined risk on this one. So, and if we get lucky, then we ride up to the highs and maybe we get a short there, or maybe we break higher because, all of those stable coins entered exchanges and they're excited to buy. So we'll have to see how that goes, but I do like a scalp long. I'm in it. If you lose money on it, please do not message me for refunds, because this
or
is
me,
a very
because I
risky one.
influenced him.
Yeah. Monte's the one giving refunds. So, let's cover ETH really quick before we head out, because, like we talked about ETH a heck of a lot last week, and it definitely had a much better time than Bitcoin, but it's having a much worse time than Bitcoin today. So, definitely, and just, quick overview, higher low, higher low. Higher low, and we still have a higher low here. So, I did tell the TTC community, breaking down below this level, this is technically a larger deviation if we are unable to get back above the 1700 level. So that is something to be aware of for Ethereum. But, if we do hold this level, then we could just end up, having a deviation underneath 1700, recover it, and then head higher. So this one is definitely a little bit more trickier. I do not have as much of a defined risk for Ethereum, but if you wanted to long here, because we are kind of seeing a bit of a new low being formed, you would long here. You would set your stop, right around the 1670 number, and you'd pray. But I would say you can probably hold off for ETH, because in my opinion, the risk is better on a sweep of 1670 or a break above 1700. I think those are the two trades that you want to take. Then obviously, if we break beneath 1670, we will form a lower low. Market structure is changed, and then we would start looking for shorts back down towards, probably mid 1600s or even 1600 flat. That's how we be kind of treating that. So I knew I drew a bunch of lines and all that fun stuff, but CJ, Monte, what do you guys think about the ETH outlook. Definitely, you know, a little bit precarious after such a steep drop, but doesn't mean it's, you know, over yet. And that's why I think the 1670 level is very critical.
In terms of that particular setup, I don't think I have much to offer in my approach. I just haven't traded them. I have some other positions I could talk about after Monte. I'm just kind of holding Coinbase stock with that being my only form of real crypto exposure. You know, some of those altcoin shorts briefly we talked about on Thursday's show, but nothing in the short term here with ETH. Like Monte, I thought you made a good point earlier when you're saying, you know, with the equity market being so risk off and looking so heavy the way it is, it's hard to have a whole lot of confidence in crypto. But
Yeah.
you know, perhaps we can continue to see some type of melt up. Monte.
Yeah, really. For me, like right now, I think buying ETH would be catching a falling knife. I think if anything, wait for, you know, that area of consolidation that Nick has highlighted there, where we kind of chopped around for a bit, between like, you know, the 29th and basically to the until we broke up. Like, I think we can see possibly some more consolidation there before going lower. But right now, like from just a purely daily perspective, and the fact that it's showing such relative weakness to Bitcoin, and if you look at the ETH BTC pair, like all of it looks really, really bad. So for right now, for me, I'm not touching this one. I would have to wait for the thing is though, like here, I'm gonna pull up my chart real quick, Nick, if you don't mind. Sorry.
Sure thing.
Man,
The thing is though, is like if we manage to hold this level here, 1680 or 1685, like right around here, where we saw some resistance here. And most notably, though, we saw the supply absorption here, this massive wick down. That would be encouraging for me. If we can maintain this level, it's kind of like the 28K level for Bitcoin. However, you know, there's just not a lot of buy pressure coming in. We saw it peak last week on the kind of precipice of that news. And now it does look like just look at how fast this thing's moving down. I mean, you know,
Yep, I just got stopped out.
Well, that's there you go,
Hey,
folks. Live
risk
trading
was
for
like
you.
0.1%, so we'll take it.
But yeah, I mean, for me, I think we see a continued move down in ETH. That being said, I wouldn't short it because, again, you know, I think that's going to be a crowded trade, and you know what happens if there's too many leverage shorts in the market. It's kind of like, you know, pouring rocket fuel on a fire. We could see this thing just take off out of nowhere if, for whatever reason, DXY opens down tomorrow and we see equity markets open up. A lot of the ETH people that shorted ETH could end up getting punished pretty bad. Same thing with Bitcoin, and same thing with, you know, a lot of the alts. So just be wary. And again, if you are going to short the alts or even long the alts, consider doing it with either the BTC pair or the ETH pair. It greatly decreases your chance of getting liquidated. And if you need any help, like setting up those positions synthetically, just come on in the Discord and ask myself, CJ, or Nick. We're more than happy to help you anytime. So, but I think that's really the only way to play ETH right now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's, I mean, if we, that's hilarious. I mean, we just dropped, I mean, we just crashed through 1670 and tagged 1640. And we literally just talked about those levels like 30 seconds ago, 60 seconds ago. Like, wow.
Yeah. Getting a nice little bounce from that 1640 level. We'll see if that holds up. That's what I want to see really hold up, though. You know, 1640 to like 1620. If we can maintain those levels and close the day around there, I think that is actually not too bad for ETH. We could see some positive price action, but for the time being, it does look like we may see it kind of break down below those levels, but we'll see.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, if ETH doesn't close, you know, 4 hour above 1670, it's going to be very difficult to maintain bullish momentum, at least in the short term. You know, whether or not we drop back to maybe 16 flat and then jump back up, I mean, I guess at the end of the day, you can't even be mad because we're getting volatility. I know we all want green candles, and I'd like to ride a bullish trend for a couple months. But at the end of the day, when you're getting 3-4% swings, one trade can make your week, and then you can just kind of walk away and live your life a little bit. So, but at the end of the day, can't say we didn't expect this because we did tell the TTC community this morning. Equities weak. DXY rising, crypto pump on a Sunday, always, three big things that are, always make you question, the bullishness. So
It's Monday.
General rule of thumb, Sunday buys
Monday,
typically
man.
get sold. So go ahead. Sorry, CJ.
It's Monday. Everyone
All
went
right.
to church yesterday. They did some reflecting, and they're like, what the hell am I doing buying ETH? That's
All right. We've
all
done.
Right, well, we're gonna go ahead and get out of here.
Enough.
I think we gave.
Whoa!
Go ahead, CJ.
I was gonna say we've
Sorry.
done many minutes of pontification. Would you like to see some setups? Are you interested in that?
What's that? What kind of setups are we talking about?
I'm not, but maybe the audience is. I'm kidding. No, I'm kidding. Actually, in all seriousness,
I wasn't gonna bring that up, but I thought it was funny. I looked it up before we moved on. Yeah, Costco is actually going up, like close to all-time highs.
Yeah, the chart looks really freaking good for Costco. I'm not gonna lie. And like CJ, remember the best investors from Fidelity were ones that were deceased. I feel like Costco is a stock that you could just buy and then just literally just disappear, just forget about it. Like they sell everything. It gives you exposure to everything. You get exposure to gold now. You get exposure to wholesale items. Like Costco gives you exposure to. It's almost like buying Amazon, right? Because you're getting exposure to like a lot more than just a grocery store. It's more than that now. They sell gold.
Yeah, it's kind of like how GE got into basically banking and
Yeah,
we're no longer an appliance company.
Well, yeah, I mean
the
airline companies don't even make a fraction of their money on actually selling airline tickets. It's all the credit card rewards.
Yeah.
Anyways, Monte, you made a point in the show earlier where you said, we're looking at the DXY, we're looking at things that have either relative strength in the presence of a strong DXY. And I also wanted to mention the aspect of things that have been also correlated with the DXY. They're actually starting to break correlation today. Oil being one of them. I think this is finally starting to really punish a lot of those longs. And, you see a lot of confluence within Harbor Oil as well. And just, these flushes can be like, once they start in many cases in these crowded trades, they don't give the longs like a chance to get out on a bounce. Like it's just days of liquidations. Not saying that's going to happen, but perhaps a pullback level such as this could be reasonable. I also want to talk just last
CJ,
about.
one sec.
Yeah,
could you pull up, you talked about it a little bit this morning, but could you pull up the NRGD chart? Because I did go ahead and take a position in this, right at the moving average.
Hey, moving averages are not resistance.
They're meant to be
levels.
broken.
They're meant to be broken. Yes.
But in all seriousness, I did open a position in this morning. This is a 3-time levered inverse ETF. That was a lot of finance words thrown into one sentence there. Sorry if it was confusing, but essentially it's the inverse of the XLE, and it's triple levered. So I bought some just straight up spot this morning, and it looks like it might break out here. So if you're looking to play energy to the downside, like CL or XLE, maybe consider looking at NRGD as a play to the upside, because 1, it's going to be less crowded. 2, it's levered 3x, and 3, you have a clearly defined breakout level being the 20 period smooth moving average there, which has clearly already been broken by the XLE. So
yeah, I think this negates, like, this is more important. Like,
right.
This is the actual thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. That's the underlying. Yeah.
Exactly.
So it makes sense that we'd see the opposite break up in NRGD. I think that's a full disclosure. I am in that position, like I said. So I'm slightly biased, but I do think the NRGD chart looks pretty good especially when you take a look at CL and XLE as well.
Yeah, really the main purpose of buying NRGD as opposed to shorting XLE via puts or something, I suppose selling calls wouldn't be maybe the worst situation, but either way, if you're just looking to buy puts, probably pretty expensive at this point. And so it's kind of just a more risk management thing to go with the 3x inverse levered ETF.
Yeah, the puts are incredibly expensive. I checked them out this morning. Even if you're using like a conservative strategy, or even just buying protective puts on these right now are very expensive. So that's great point, CJ, and another reason why that was my my buy for today was NRGD. Thanks for reminding me of that.
Alt's really rolling over a bit as we're talking. Last thing I just wanted to show. This is kind of what should be the most cautionary tale, I think, from like a bullish perspective in terms of ES. So as you have price going into the highs, you can see in yellow and in green, that's retail and large speculators, and they just continue to get high, or they continue to buy. They continue to buy into the highs, and even more so on that second lower high. And now, like they're going to be forced to capitulate if price keeps going down. So from a risk reward perspective, the longs are kind of trapped here. And a very similar thing is going on in NKD. And this will be the last thing, and I'll wrap up. But this is also another short that I am in that I think is an interesting like risk reward play. We've been talking about this kind of downward sloping chimp trend line for quite a while, but now it's kind of, if we could catch some of these gap fills down here in the next like 3 to 4 weeks, I think that would be a really probabilistic or a really nice like risk reward setup. And as you can see, large and small specs, very long at these levels. And
That's interesting.
They're actually shorting all the way in, like they're max short, large speculators are max short into the uptrend as it's making new highs. So doing the opposite of those positions would have been pretty profitable over the course of the last few months if you kind of do it and scale in gradually with adequate risk management. So
one thing we'll say, CJ, too, last thing, that oscillator stayed low for quite some time before pumping up, right? I think the same thing could happen on the opposite end, but yeah, we'll see. That's a good chart to keep your eye on.
All right, a lot of good trade calls today and discussion. Again, if you're watching and you're not in the TTC community, everything we're discussing now is generally a follow-up to what we've already put in the community or mentioned to the community first. So of course, every morning dropping, our ideas, insights, getting ready for the day. Here's what we're looking at. Here's, the levels you need to pay attention to. And then of course, these shows are supplementary education. So of course, those who are non-members can follow along, but do not think that all of the alpha is coming through on just these 30, 60-minute programs. So all the good, juicy stuff is happening in the community. We've got our eyes on those levels. We'll be following up this evening. And of course, tomorrow morning, as we always do. And remember, 14 days free at www.tradethechain.com. And of course, if you are looking for a decentralized or centralized exchange, depending on your risk tolerance and trading desires, BingX and DideX, both award-winning exchanges, fantastic rewards for traders, and a lot of opportunities for you to earn additionally on top of the volume that you trade. So you're not just always trading away, wasting your own capital. So with that being said, we do this show every Monday and Thursday. And do not forget, Monte and CJ have a morning show every morning at 10 a.m. on this channel. If you want to find any of our links, please look in the description section below. You'll find everything you need to know to join us on the crypto, equities, and commodities journey. We'll see everyone later this week. Have a good day and happy trading.